It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee ready to do it again. How you doing, Dale?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
Man, doing great. Enjoying this weather and this rain and this heat, and man, it's just always an adventure every time you walk out of the house in southeast Mississippi.
Well, really, I don't know if you've thought about it, because you probably hadn't.
I probably hadn't thought at all, Dale. You should know that by now.
We have 5 Friday nights before regular season football starts and 5 Saturdays before the SEC starts.
Be here before we know it.
Yes, sir. Just
be
5
here
to go.
before we know it. I want to jump on something right off the bat. You know, we've talked a lot about the reorganization and stuff, and I saw an article the other day. You'll probably enjoy this and get a kick out of it if I can get it out. You know, you're talking about, this is the title for Cal and Stanford. The ACC reality is setting in. Let's see. Listen to this. Stanford's volleyball team will travel over 29,000 miles round trip to play this season. That's a lot of travel to play volleyball, is it not?
It is.
Do you think they thought about this at all when they started? When started?
Listen, I think they were just trying to get in a conference. I mean, when USC and UCLA left, what do we do?
Man, yeah, we're gonna have to
run.
We got to get our suitcases back.
Who wants us? Ugliest girl, raise your hand. Anybody.
Well, this Cal's football team plays 5 road games this season. 4 of them are over 2,000 miles away. And the 5th one is nearly 1,500 miles from Berkeley. In total, the Golden Bears will travel more than 20,000 miles round trip for 5 games. I mean, Dale, that's going to be difficult, don't you think, on these players?
Well, yeah. I'm sure they'll find a way to get it. I know in the NFL a lot of times if they're going to play a Sunday game, they'll leave Thursday nights. Like if the Rams are going to New York and play on the Eastern Coast, they will leave on Thursday night. Yeah. And try to get used to the time change, because the travel time is good too. But when you're going to California to Virginia,
it matters.
It's 3 hours. I know when I travel backwards to California, and it takes. I'm sitting there. Listen, I'm sitting there at 10 o'clock at night in California, and it's 8 o'clock in my brain. I mean, really.
Yeah. It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be a very interesting year in college sports with these new configurations. That was one that just really stuck out at me. Then I think we've got a guest that we don't want to tarry on too much tonight.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and see if we can get him talk. Let's let him talk a little bit. You need to just shut up.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you do that for
me?
Before you shut up, will you tell us who tonight's guest is? He's not going to. Yeah, you.
Was I supposed to get the guest?
Yeah.
Okay. No, we have SB Live's Tyler Cleveland. He's a high school football expert. That's what I call him.
He's a good one.
He's doing articles and everything, and some of these people that know about Scorebook Live and all that, he puts articles up there. They post them on the Mississippi High School website, the games that he goes to. Yeah. And things like that, and he always features a game. He's just going to give us a rundown of some of the top teams and some of the top players in Mississippi for 2024.
Well, we're very fortunate and excited about having Tyler with us, and if you haven't heard him before, when you hear him, you will be too. So, Dale, let's take a break here from a sponsor, and we'll be back with tonight's guest, Tyler Cleveland, right after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Tyler Cleveland. Tyler, we're getting ready for high school football, aren't we?
So, Yeah, it seems like it's year-round these days, but when you get to this time of the year, you really start to get those juices flowing. It feels like the season is upon us, even though it's still a good 3 or 4 weeks away.
Well, listen, just kind of tell us about maybe some of the stronger teams in each class this year.
Well, I think Mississippi is going to boast a fantastic 2025 recruiting class. We had a banner year last year, and we've got some spectacular players all across the state. I'll start in 7A. I think we're going to have. I think it's wide open. I think there's I think there's been a changing of the guard. Oak Grove, obviously was the strongest team in the state last year. Had fantastic quarterback play and really just outdueled Starkville in that 7A state championship. Not sure either one of those teams will be back this year. I'm sure Oak Grove would take a little umbrage with that. But major overhaul with their quarterback graduating. It looks like the offense is going to have to look a little bit different for the Grovers down there in Hattiesburg. And then you look at Starkville. They have to replace Trey Petty, the all-state quarterback who's off to Illinois, and a slew of other really good position players in their offense. So I think 7A is pretty wide open. I'm looking at some dark horses. I know it's hard to call Brandon High School a dark horse. They've been so good over the past couple of years, but I think this could be the year they get over the hump in the South State Championship and maybe bring home a state title. I think in the North, I'm looking at a really young, good Madison Central team that made it to North State last year when nobody gave them a chance to be there, and took Starkville to the wire in that game, in a game I was at up at Yellow Jacket Stadium. So I think it's going to be a really good, wide-open year in our highest classification, and I think that's really good for Mississippi high school football. It drives interest, and I think there's a lot of teams with a pulse right now.
Okay, what about 6A? 6A usually plays pretty good football itself.
It does, and 6A, the addition of the 7th class has really helped the 6A division. I think last year you saw that with a number of teams that traditionally you would like to see competing that had kind of been out of the mix for a while. I'm talking about your Grenadas and your Warren Centrals of the world. I think 6A is another class that could be pretty wide open. I think Grenada is going to have another run at it. They came up just short last year. I think they've got a chance. Just looking around the state, it's pretty wide open, guys. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that anybody's going to be able. I think they've got to be the front runner going in. But you look down there on the coast, there's a bunch of good teams. A lot of good players, places. I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here. I know, looks like, I think Hattiesburg's 5A these days. They've got a slew of players in my top prospects list. So how about Pascagoula?
Yeah.
How about Pascagoula, a team that played really, really well last year, has a bunch of good athletes, including Jalen Farnell, who you guys are going to come to know if you haven't already. He's listed as an athlete, but, man, he's a monster at linebacker. I think they've got a really good defense, and I give them a great chance.
Yeah, well, really in 6A now, you look at it, it's kind of the old 5A a little bit for South State. I know West Jones is in there, Picayune's in there. I think Hattiesburg's in 6A now because the way they redid the districts. And
that's right, they jumped right up.
Yeah.
Hattiesburg, and they're a team that has a slew of good prospects. Very, very strong. I think I give them a chance for the first time in a couple of years. They've got a good chance to make some noise this year.
I read somewhere where they're talking they got maybe the best rosters they've ever had. That bunch they had when they had Snoop Connor and that ATM machine down there, that was a pretty good bunch of athletes they had. If they're better than that bunch, they're going to be hard to handle.
Well, I would talk.
They are. I mean, and I wanted to jump on that. I mean, you talk about Kevin Otis, a defensive lineman from there. He's another 4-star recruit, offers from LSU, Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and even Southern Cal. I mean, the guy just eats double teams all day long. I mean, their defense is going to be very, very stout. I think it's just a matter of whether they can get the ball to Tristan Keys. They're outrageously good wide receiver. I think they just have to figure it out offensively, and that's a tough region down there. So they got their work cut out for them. But I really feel like the roster that Tony Vance has is probably the best he's had since that group you mentioned.
All right, now 5A. I want to say the name West Point. Now, who can even compete with them this year? I know they got a new coach, and so they're in a new they're in a new era. But it just seems like that they still they don't really. How do you say it? They just line up and play football. They're not fancy. They run straight at you, old school tackle. I mean, they just do a good job at blocking and tackling. So tell us who can compete with West Point.
Well, I'm not sure, guys. I mean, they've been so strong, and like you said, that it's not anything flashy. You know exactly what you're getting with them. I think they're despite losing a couple of guys, they're not going to take a huge step back. I think they're going to compete again. You'd be a fool not to have them penciled in to that state championship. But if you're talking about teams that might compete with them, I'm looking around at teams like maybe Holmes County Central in the north. They've got a really good quarterback coming back and a couple of really highly recruited prospects. It remains to be seen whether they can put it together and give them a run for their money at North State. But you look in the South and you look at a team like Laurel, a team that can line up with them and maybe go right at them. The offensive line at Laurel is huge, and they're a team that maybe can go pound for pound with West Point hat on a hat type football. And we'll see, a lucky break here or there. I mean, the thing about West Point is they are contingent. Their drives are so long and methodical. They're contingent upon scoring at the end of them. And if you can keep them out of the end zone or get a couple of turnovers here or there, you got a chance. But it's like a boa constrictor. You feel like you're getting choked to death. So I look at a team like Laurel that may be able to gut out a win like that and go toe to toe with them. But you like I said, you'd be a fool not to have them penciled into that state championship game because they're there every year.
All right, why don't you quickly run through the other classes, the 4, the 3, the 2, and the 1. Maybe tell us 1 or 2 teams that we need to look at or keep up with.
Sure. I'll start in 4A. I know they've had some athletes over the years and haven't been able to put it together in a state championship type deal in a while, but Morton is loaded. They've got a really good quarterback, a wide receiver who's in that 2026 class, I think, Xavier McDonald, who is one of the best players in the entire state. Of course, you got to throw Ripley in there and Amory, kind of interested to see what they do this year. I think both of them are coming off big seasons, but have to replace a lot of good talent. I think you also throw Senatobia in there. They seem to be a team that gets it done year in and year out. I know they played for it 2 years ago. I think they could be back in the mix this year. And then a team at Greene County. I mean, Kobe King has been a really good player for them, the quarterback there, and I think he's ready. He could take a big step as a senior and really kind of put them in the mix. Jumping down to 3A, I think it's more wide open than it has been in past years. You have to put Noxubee County up there at the top. The quarterback that they have up there is just incredible. The Camario Taylor jumped on you remember him at the state championships 2 years ago in Hattiesburg. He threw like 6 touchdown passes. Since then, he's only grown. He's like 6'4", pushing 6'5", over 200 pounds. He's just your prototypical big arm, big body quarterback. I want to say he threw for over 3,500 yards last year with 48 touchdowns.
Wow.
And just 5 interceptions. Yeah, he's a heck of a player. So you got to put them. And then Noxubee County, as always, is so tough on defense. So they play one of those golden triangle teams you just expect to be really good on defense. So I would think they would be right up there. Outside of that, I'm not sure. Choctaw County has got a fantastic wide receiver who's the top-rated player in the state this year, Caleb Cunningham. but they just haven't been able to make much noise the past couple of years. But maybe that'll change this year. I know he certainly presents a matchup problem for every team on their schedule, and that includes the heavy hitters. I'm sure they're playing Starkville and Louisville and teams like that this year. They'll have a tough time dealing with him. Jumping down to 2A, I think it's pretty, I don't think there's one team that could just win. I mean, usually you would say, Scott Central, a team like that. But I think it's more wide open with the reclassification. I mean, I'm not sure there's anybody that just jumps out at me. But it is an absolutely loaded class now with Bay Springs, Scott Central. I mean, these are teams that, LaFleur County, these are teams that are in the mix every year and were in 1A or 3A or wherever they were before. Now they're in 2A. I look at a team like Collins that could jump out at you. But I think those are kind of the front runners. And then Class 1A, you got to start with Velma Jackson. Of course, that state championship game last year was just wild. With Biggersville, they just scored like 1 million points between the two of them. I think those two are probably the favorites going into it. Don't ever count out a team like Nanawaya or Simmons. These teams that you used to see in there at the end. Also, you got Taylorsville sitting there in Class 1A, and they've got Laza Beavers, the quarterback, coming back for his senior year. So they definitely could be a team to watch.
Okay, appreciate that great preview and that information about the teams. Tell us, let's just go by maybe, let's just start on offense, and we're not going to ask for every position for sure. But
sure.
Who do you think, like quarterbacks? Who are some of the quarterbacks? I know George County's got an excellent quarterback, supposedly signed an NIL deal, so he must be pretty good. But I'm sure there's others just besides Deuce there.
Yeah, Deuce Knight, fantastic player. I mean, and just look at him. I mean, 6'4", 210. I think he's the second highest rated recruit in Mississippi for this recruiting class. He had that deal where he transferred to Lipscomb Academy in Nashville, but he came back and just in 10 games there went 5-5. Threw for over 2,000 yards with 17 touchdowns and just 2 picks. Also added 500 yards on the ground with 11 touchdowns. I mean, he's just a guy that can do it all for them. And what's fun about Deuce is that, he's also like a track star. I mean, he won the 6A championship in the long jump, and he won the high jump at the state track meet last year. I mean, he's one of those guys, one of those small-town Mississippi guys that is just going to be a stud. I mean, whatever he decides to do with his career, I think he's going to be successful. I mentioned Kamario Taylor from Noxubee County. He's a fantastic player. Another guy that's kind of going onto the radar, there's two I'd put in this category. One is Javaris Beatman from Cleveland Central. Recently started picking up a bunch of good offers. He's just a freak athletic quarterback. And then the other guy is Garrison Davis from Holmes County Central. He's kind of undersized. He's like 5'10". But if you remember, they had a guy a couple of years ago, Zy McDonald, who was Deuce McAllister's cousin, who made the All-State teams, and he was kind of the same size, but he was at Ridgeland, and Garrison kind of reminds me of him. He's bounced all over, started at Brandon, went to Ridgeland, now he's at Holmes County Central, really came into his own last year with a 2,500-yard season, threw for 28 touchdowns, could be primed for a big senior year. I just think he's a guy that we should really keep an eye on.
I want to ask you a question. I want to kind of get off track. You talk about this kid's been at all these different high schools.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you mentioned Deuce, Dale mentioned Deuce with the NIL deal. Are high school kids starting to shop around to get in better programs to enhance their prospects at NIL? Are you seeing that, or is this, is that something?
Think it kind of started before the NIL. This was, I want to say, 2 years ago. The director of the MHSA, Ricky Deves, before he was in his current position, was head of compliance, which means he oversaw the transfers. And he was telling me even back then that he had a crazy amount. I mean, it was to the point where we would have, 10 years ago, we might have like 80 in a season. And now we have, close to 2,000. I mean, the number has just exploded. The number of kids that are moving around. And I think a lot of that, some of it probably has to do with socioeconomic stuff that I'm not too privy on.
Yeah.
I mean, people move around for work. People's parents move around for work. But a lot of it, and especially when you see these big-name skill position guys, they are trying to get more exposure.
Yeah.
Which is, certainly understandable. I mean, and you see it a lot going to metro areas or going to more higher-profile programs. And I'm sure the NIL plays a role in that because, the more that the fan base wants you, the more money you are worth to the college.
Yeah.
And so that's the way it's going to work going forward. Now, that said, I don't think, I think you can stay at a program and not be overlooked if you really are that good. I can't think of a case study off the top of my head, but, there's been guys I'll say a guy like Xavier McDonald at Morton. I mean, I saw him as a freshman and was just completely blown away by him. I thought this guy is going to be the next big thing, and I fully expected him to play his junior and or senior year at a place like Brandon or somewhere like that, But he stayed at Morton, and he's, getting his laurels now. I think he's got a 4-star from 24/7 Sports. So, it's cool to see somebody stay, but I can't really fault them, if they're not getting what they think they need where they are, So it's a convoluted subject, and I can't stand it because when you're trying to do preseason work for a team, it's like pulling hair.
You don't know where they're going to be. Well, the compliance folks, or whatever the proper name for them at the Mississippi High School Activities Association, probably needs to add to their roster and going to be mighty busy because it's okay if you go to the Lipscomb Academy or the Jackson Academy or Jackson Prep, but if you go from public school to public school, that's a problem, is it not?
Yeah, well, I think it's important for your listeners to know that process is pretty drawn out. I mean, you have to relocate your entire family. You cannot just, rent an apartment somewhere, put it under somebody's name.
Okay.
And the MHSA does look into these transfers. So especially if it's one where, there's no clear reason why they're transferring, like a parent gets a new job in a town or something like that. But a lot of these schools, and I'm not going to name names, but there's a couple of them that offer parents jobs, to get their kids to come to the school district. And while we may not agree with that, there's nothing illegal about it.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
You just kind of have to roll with the punches.
Yeah. I didn't want to. I'm at the point in my life, I get a question, I have to ask it, or I forget what it was. So I apologize for breaking your chain of thought there. But
You're fine. No, you're fine.
Let's get back to some of the players you were highlighting on us, and I'll back up out of the way a little bit.
Sure, I'll move to running backs. We talked about quarterbacks. There's a bunch of good running backs this year. It's a couple of guys that have kind of waited in the wings for their time to shine. And I'll start with two from Brandon. There's Quincy Phillips. He really is a slot receiver, but he's probably going to play running back at the next level. He burst onto the scene as one of the top return men in the state on kicks and punts 2 years ago. Played a crucial role for the Bulldogs last year, and he's back this year. The problem is he's got to share the load with Tyson Robinson, who is probably the best sophomore in the state in terms of college prospects. As a freshman last year, he averaged over 8 yards a carry at Brandon, had 6 touchdowns, was playing behind Nate Blunt and Quincy Phillips, so he didn't have as many carries as you would like. But I'm telling you guys, he's the next big thing. It's pretty ridiculous what he's able to do at such a young age. He's kind of a one-cut back. But that cut is pretty devastating. The other guys I'm looking at are like Demarius Yates from Kemper County. He had almost 1,500 total yards last season, playing as a kind of a role player for them, but he's ready to step into the feature back spot. Jaden Hill from Tupelo. He's a 6', 220-pound guy. He can do it all. I think he led them in rushing last year in his prime for a big senior year. And you mentioned Akeelan Deere. Oh my goodness, from Quitman. He is he's the highest rated prospect who has not committed anywhere. He looks like a guy. He's 6'1" and 200 pounds, and that doesn't do him justice. I mean, he's got muscles on top of muscles. I think he got his 4th star from 24/7 Sports. Ran for over 2,000 yards last year with 27 touchdowns. So, should be, if he can stay healthy, primed for a huge year this year.
Yeah, we've seen him. I've seen some video on him. He's special. We played him when he was a sophomore, I believe it was, too. And he's a difference maker, no doubt. What you got, Dale?
Yeah, they just put him in a shotgun and told him to run.
Run the ball.
Run the ball. They didn't even want to fool with a hand
If I had him, that's what I'd tell him to do.
Run the ball.
Yeah, just go, man.
Go that way, go that way, go that way. Listen, what about we talked about wide receivers, and of course the young man at Ackerman, I guess, would be the top wide receiver in the state.
Choctaw.
And
yeah, he's an incredible player, guys.
Yeah, has he committed to Alabama, or is he just still in the?
He did. He committed to Alabama in late June. I think actually in early July. But it's been about a month. He is just a fantastic player. He's a consensus 5-star recruit from all the recruiting services. He's 6'1" and 190 pounds. Doesn't sound like much. Just watch film. It's pretty ridiculous. He caught 48 balls for 1,100 yards and change and 14 touchdowns last year. And I can't stress this to you enough. It's not like they've got some, star. I mean, this guy is perpetually open. And I mean, I wouldn't want to line up against him at DB either. I mean, he can do it all for them. He's going to have to play a huge role for them to make some noise this year. But individually, as a talent, I don't think there's anybody, right now that comes close to him.
Tyler, I'm kind of warned you about this before we got started. We're out of time. I'm going to ask you, we appreciate you being with us as always, man. Outstanding. I'm going to ask you to hold on for just a minute. Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors, and we'll be back with the final segment of tonight's Brouhaha right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everybody. I tell you what, as advertised, Mr. Tyler Cleveland, he knows his stuff.
He does.
He knows his stuff.
He loves it and keeps up with it, and he's done it all his life.
You know your stuff too, Dale.
No, not as much as Tyler. Tyler keeps up with it now. I keep up with it, but not to the extent that he keeps up with it. I promise you.
Well, that's just why he's the guest.
That's right. He's the expert. I use the word expert with him.
Yeah, okay. All right.
There you go.
I was sitting here. I saw something, and we're about out of time. I want to hit this right quick. I saw a headline on the news that said former NCAA athletes will receive $2.777 billion in back compensation after lawsuit settlement. They fixing to get more money?
Yeah, I think it's got a date on it. I can't remember what year it is. Maybe it goes back 10 years or something like that. I'm not sure, but
it's 10 years. You're right. It's 10 years. Yeah. And they're going to be getting, I think all these schools are going to be getting like $12,500, maybe it's $125,000 a year or something for a long, long time. But I mean, the players are. Mm-hmm. I think it's $12,500 a year for 10 years.
Yeah,
that's what you're going to do.
Where
can we get in line?
I don't know, but
to get some of that money.
I'm sure there's a Dale McKee that played college football somewhere that I could maybe say, "Hey, I'm him."
That's me.
Send me that 12.5.
Dale, have you been watching in the Olympics?
I sure have.
What do you think?
Well, really, I've been watching swimming and women's gymnastics and a little male gymnastics.
Yeah.
I think that's my main thing that I've been watching.
Simone Biles,
of course,
is back.
I don't get the remote during the Olympics. I don't get the remote. I cannot use the remote.
Oh, you can't?
No, somebody hijacks it from me.
We
gotta watch this. We gotta watch that.
No, we're not going to call any name.
I'm gonna see women's gymnastics, so I watch. But there's fascinating stories. I got tickled at the guy. I think it was Sunday night. He won the first gold medal France has ever won in one of the one of the swimming competitions. Not that they haven't won a swimming gold medal, but it was in this particular competition, like the 400-meter butterfly or something like that. He's the first one in history, and he did it in his home, basically in his home country.
That'd be cool.
And even a lot of guys like that Mark Speets and all those great ones that we had, they never won one in the United States. They always won them somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? And so, it was, and I watched I think the Americans had a relay team in one of maybe the 400 meter.
4x100?
Yeah, or something like that. And man, they blitzed everybody.
Yeah.
And so, it's.
Go USA, baby.
Yeah. I mean, and there was an American girl, she set a record. And of course, the gymnastics, I mean, we're loaded in men's.
Good to see Biles back.
Yeah, they said she had a little left pain, but I was impressed with the girl that won the gold, the all-around gold in Tokyo 4 years ago. Went to Auburn.
I know you're talking about. Can't say that.
Sinew Lee or something like that. But there was a story about her that during her. I remember I saw her in college. I went to Alabama to see them in a meet against Alabama Auburn, and she was there, and she wasn't she was dominant, but she wasn't dominant like you thought an Olympic would be, And so, I'm not telling you I wasn't impressed because she won. She got some good numbers over there, but then they said here a few weeks after that meet, I'm finding out. She had some kidney problems, and she gained 45 pounds in a month. And all of a sudden, she couldn't fit in her clothes. I mean, they're going through this documentary last night, and this happened maybe 2 years ago. And now she's competing again on the highest stage because they sent her to Minnesota to, what's the one in
Osner's?
Or Mayo Clinic?
Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. That's her hometown. And they sent her up there, and they found out that she had 2 problems with her kidneys. They corrected those, and then she decided on her own, hey, I'm going to get back.
Yeah.
I want to go back. Mm-hmm. And there's stories, too, about the swimmers having to work up to 3 part-time jobs.
These people, it's their life.
Yeah, just
they put everything they have into
just to pay for the training they have to go through.
Man, it's incredible what they do. These are truly, they commit their every ounce of their existence to it.
Sure.
Kind of like you do with the Brouhaha, Dale. I appreciate you, brother. And we've had a lot of fun tonight. You've had some good guests. You've had some outstanding comments to make, and you're just hitting them out of the park one after the other. But you know what? Who
are you?
I know what time it is. It's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week. Well, no, hold on a minute. Follow us on Facebook at the Brouhaha, and you can see all our shows or listen to them all on the internet on our YouTube channel at the Brouhaha. But you know what? Now, when we misfired, I misfired a while ago. I led you into a misfire, but I'm going to give you a chance to make it right.
What's that?
It's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
All right, we'll see you next week. Well, the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.